What is the price of a person's dignity? For Gideon Blake, a man who believed the entire world operated on a ledger of dollars and cents, the answer was $5,000. He was a king, a titan of industry, and the waitress in front of him was just a waitress. But he was about to make a fatal mistake. He wasn't just offering a tip. He was trying to buy her silence, her subservience, her soul. He had no idea that this woman, wiping down his table in a $30 apron, was the one person on earth who held his entire multi-billion-dollar empire in the palm of her hand, and she was about to close her fist. The air in the alcove wasn't just conditioned, it was curated. It smelled faintly of old money, seared scallops, and a distant floral perfume that cost more per ounce than a small car. The restaurant was a canyon of dark mahogany and muted gold lighting, a place where whispers could topple governments or merge corporations. And tonight, at the most exclusive corner booth, Table 1, as the staff fearfully called it, sat the apex predator of this environment, Gideon Blake. Gideon was not a loud man. He didn't need to be. His power was a physical presence, a drop in temperature that occurred whenever he entered a room. He was the COO and founder of Quantum Dynamics, a tech conglomerate that had swallowed the last decade's innovations whole, digesting them and spitting out profit. He was in his late 40s, with a face that looked carved from granite, framed by meticulously cut salt and pepper hair. His suit was a bespoke Tom Ford, dark charcoal, and his watch, a Patek Philippe Grand complication, was subtle, yet screamed its value to those who knew. He was here for the single most important meeting of his life. Gideon checked his watch. 8:03 p.m. The target was 3 minutes late. He drummed his fingers on the pristine, heavy linen tablecloth. The target, the anonymous founder of Aura Technologies. Aura was the white whale of the tech industry, a ghost, a rumor. For 2 years, Aura had been developing a next-generation neural interface, a piece of tech so revolutionary it would make smartphones look like stone tablets. Quantum Dynamics needed it. Their stock had plateaued. Their investors were getting restless. This acquisition wasn't just about growth, it was about survival. He had spent millions, mobilized his entire legal and intelligence division just to secure this meeting. All he knew was that the founder used a proxy, a law firm by the name of Peterson, Drake, and Llewellyn, and that they would meet here tonight at 8. No name, no photo, just a time and a table. Gideon hated the theatrics. He hated being made to wait. "Sir?" He looked up. A young woman was standing there. She was dressed in the simple, elegant black uniform of the Alcove staff. She was perhaps in her late 20s, with dark, intelligent eyes and brown hair pulled back into a severe, professional bun. She held a silver water pitcher. Gideon didn't look at her face. He looked at the pitcher. "You're late," he snapped, his voice a low baritone. The waitress paused just for a fraction of a second. "Sir?" "With the water. I've been seated for 4 minutes. Water should be at the table in 1. He gestured to his empty glass. "This is table 1, not a booth at the back of some diner. I expect perfection. Is that clear?" The young woman's expression didn't flicker, but a deep, controlled stillness settled over her. She inclined her head. "My apologies, sir. It won't happen again." She poured the water, her hand perfectly steady. The ice clicked softly against the crystal. "Is your guest here?" she asked, her voice polite, empty of emotion. "My guest," Gideon said, contempt lacing his words, "is late, or perhaps they're playing games. Either way, they're costing me money." He opened the leather-bound menu, a tome that listed appetizers starting at $90. Bring me the Chateau Valois, 2005. And don't send a sommelier. I know what I want. I assume you can handle that? The waitress met his gaze. For 1 second, Gideon felt an uncomfortable jolt, as if he were being x-rayed. He was used to people fawning, or trembling, or immediately looking away. She just looked. The 2005 Valois. An excellent choice, Mr. Blake, she said, her voice quiet. I will bring it immediately. She turned and walked away, her steps silent on the thick Persian rug. Gideon watched her go, a flicker of irritation passing over him. He disliked being recognized when he was trying to be anonymous, but he also disliked being treated with such neutrality. He was Gideon Blake. He expected a certain level of terror. The fact that she knew his name meant she knew his power. Her lack of fear was, in itself, a form of disrespect. He put her out of his mind. 8:05 p.m. He pulled out his phone and typed a curt message to Philip Shaw, his head of legal. Status? The reply was instantaneous. Still dark, sir. The proxy confirmed 8 p.m. They are supposed to be on site. Should I call the firm? Gideon typed back. No. Waiting. He despised this. He was a shark, and he was being forced to tread water. He looked up as the waitress returned. She presented the bottle, uncorked it with an efficiency that was almost mechanical, and poured a small tasting. Gideon waved his hand dismissively. Just pour it. She filled the glass and placed the bottle in a silver chiller beside the table. Will there be anything else for now, Mr. Blake? Yes. Silence. And another glass. For my guest. Who, he added, looking pointedly at the empty chair, is now 7 minutes late. Very good, sir. She vanished again. Gideon sipped the wine. It was perfect, of course. But it tasted like ash in his mouth. This whole situation was wrong. He was Gideon Blake. People waited for him. The waitress's name was Lena. To the rest of the staff at the Alcove, she was a bit of an enigma. She'd been working there for 18 months, hired by the intimidating general manager, Monsieur Laurent, after a single interview. She was, without question, the best server they had. She was unflappable, precise, and had a memory that bordered on photographic. She knew every regular, their preferred drink, their allergies, their mistresses' names. But she was intensely private. She didn't join the staff for drinks after their grueling 16-hour shifts. She didn't gossip. She came in, did her job with a chilling perfection, and left. The younger waiters, like Ben, were in awe of her. Ben was currently polishing glasses behind the service bar, watching her. He had seen Gideon Blake walk in. He'd seen the tension in Monsieur Laurent's shoulders. He'd seen the assignment for Table 1 go to Lena, as it always did when a whale was in. She's not even sweating, Ben whispered to another server, Maria. He snapped at her about the water. I would have dropped the pitcher. Lena's not human, Maria whispered back. She's a high-performance serving robot. But Blake, he looks like he's going to murder someone. Lena returned to the service station, her face a perfect mask of neutrality. She printed out the wine order for the inventory system. Her hands, however, were clenched so tightly at her sides that her knuckles were white. She was not a robot. She was a block of ice, holding back an inferno. She knew exactly who Gideon Blake was. She had known the reservation was his, even though it was booked under quantum. She had specifically requested the table from Monsieur Laurent. He had been surprised. Table 1, Lena? On a Tuesday. It is Blake. He is difficile. I can handle Mr. Blake, she had said. Now, standing just out of his line of sight, she took a single, deep, shuddering breath. She had to break the moment, to reset her focus. She closed her eyes for 1 second, and the sterile, quiet kitchen faded, replaced by another memory. A different man. A warmer man, with laugh lines around his eyes and graphite stains on his fingers. Her father, Ariana Flores. He was sitting at their cluttered dining room table, sketching on a napkin. "It's not about the money, Lenichka," he used to say, his voice thick with a slight, lingering Russian accent. "It's about the beauty, the idea. To make something that has never been. This is the real work." Lena opened her eyes. The memory was acid. The smell of the kitchen, saffron and clarifying butter, brought her back. She picked up a second wine glass, polished it on a clean cloth, and walked back out into the dining room. Gideon Blake was on his phone, his face illuminated by the cold blue light. His thumb was scrolling, hard and fast. He looked up as she approached, his eyes full of impatience. "My guest is not here," he stated. "I see that, sir. Can I offer you an appetizer while you wait? The seared foie gras is exceptional tonight." Gideon let out a short, humorless laugh. "Foie gras? Do I look like I'm here to celebrate? No, you can—" He stopped, his eyes narrowing. He looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, he was scanning her, processing. He saw the cheap uniform, the plain face, the hands of a worker. She was nothing, a component. "You know," he said, leaning back and swirling his wine, "I hate this place. Do you know why?" Lena stood perfectly still, the empty wine glass in her hand. "No, sir." "The pretense," he said, gesturing around the opulent room. "It's all a show. People spending $1,000 on dinner to feel important. It's a lie. I am important. I don't need gold leaf on my food to prove it." He took a long, slow drink of the $1,000 wine. "It's all about power. Who has it and who doesn't? You, for example. You have none." He was testing her. He was bored, angry, and he had found a target. He was a cat, and she was the only mouse in the room. Lena's training, her 18 months of building this facade, held firm. "My only power is to ensure your experience is satisfactory, Mr. Blake." "Satisfactory," he mused. "No, it's not. My night is already ruined. This aura, this ghost I'm supposed to meet. They think they're clever, making me wait. They think it gives them leverage. But all it does," he leaned forward, his voice dropping, "is make me angry. And when I get angry, I don't negotiate. I conquer." He stared at her, expecting a reaction, a flinch, a nervous nod. Lena simply placed the second wine glass on the table. "I hope, for your sake, that they'd arrive soon, sir. Please let me know if you require anything." She turned to leave. "Wait." She stopped, her back to him. "What's your name?" he demanded. She turned around. Her heart was a cold, heavy stone in her chest. She had practiced this. She had rehearsed this moment in her tiny, bare apartment for 1,000 nights. The truth or the lie? She chose the lie, the one on her name tag. "Anna," she said. Gideon grunted. "Well, Anna, my glass is empty." Lena walked back to the table, lifted the heavy bottle of Chateau Valois, and poured. Her hand did not shake. Gideon watched her, a small, cruel smile playing on his lips. He was enjoying this. He had found his rhythm. "You're good at that," he said. "Steady hands. No future in it, though. This entire industry, service, it's all going to be automated. In 5 years, you'll be replaced by a machine that won't be late with the water." Lena placed the bottle back in the chiller. "That is the march of progress, sir." "Indeed." He pulled out his phone again. 8:15 p.m. "Get me your manager." "Is there a problem with my service?" "No, your service is adequate. I want to know what he knows. I'm paying a premium for this table. I want to know who is in that chair." He pointed to the empty seat. "And why they aren't in it." "Monsieur Laurent does not have access to your guest list, Mr. Blake. It was a blind booking." Gideon's eyes snapped to hers. "How did you know that?" Lena's blood ran cold. A mistake, a tiny slip. She had revealed she knew the nature of his reservation. She recovered instantly. "Monsieur Laurent mentioned it at the staff briefing, sir. We were told to be discreet and to expect a VIP at your table." Gideon studied her. He didn't believe her. He could smell the lie, but he couldn't place its origin. He decided it didn't matter. "Fine. Go away. Just be available. I'm going to make a call." Lena nodded and retreated, disappearing into the shadows of the dining room. She went straight to the staff locker room, a tiny, windowless concrete box. She locked the door, leaned against the metal, and finally let her body tremble. She wasn't Anna. She was Ariana Flores, and she had just served wine to the man who had murdered her father. Mikhail Flores had not died in a literal sense. Gideon Blake was not a man who used guns or knives. He used leveraged buyouts, patent trolling, and corporate espionage. He used the law as a weapon, and he had bled Mikhail Flores dry. Ariana's mind flew back 8 years. She was 21, a brilliant computer science major at MIT, on a full scholarship. Her father, Mikhail, ran Flores Innovations, a small, scrappy, but brilliant tech firm in Boston. He was a genius, a man who thought in code and dreamed in schematics. His passion project was a haptic interface technology he called Touchstone, a way to translate complex data into a tactile form for the visually impaired. It was revolutionary. It was also, unfortunately, built on a sliver of code that Gideon Blake's quantum dynamics claimed to own. It was a lie, a legal fiction. Quantum had bought a defunct, smaller company years prior for the sole purpose of absorbing its patent portfolio. They had a single, vaguely worded patent from 1998 that their army of lawyers, led by a ruthless shark named Philip Shaw, argued covered the core concept of touchstone. Ariana remembered the first letter, the cease and desist. Her father had laughed. "Is a joke, Lenichka. They are bullies. My code is my code. The work is good. They cannot stop the work." But they could. And they did. Gideon Blake didn't want to buy Flores Innovations. He wanted to crush it. Mikhail was a small, annoying competitor in a space Blake wanted to dominate. So he sued. He buried Mikhail in litigation. He filed motion after motion, injunction after injunction. He bled her father's company of every dollar it had. Mikhail, a proud, brilliant man, refused to settle. He believed in the justice system. He believed his work would speak for itself. He poured his life savings into the legal defense. Then he mortgaged their house. Ariana had offered to drop out of MIT, to come and help him. But he refused. "No, you are the future. You finish. This is just noise." The noise became a roar. After 2 years, her father was broke. The company was insolvent. The court, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of Quantum's filings and baffled by the technology, issued a preliminary injunction. Flores Innovations was forced to shutter, but Blake wasn't done. That was the part Ariana would never, ever forget. Blake wasn't just a businessman. He was a sadist. Once the company was in bankruptcy, Quantum Dynamics swept in. They didn't buy the company. They bought its assets at auction for pennies on the dollar. They bought Touchstone. They bought Mikhail Flores' patents, his life's work, his notebooks. 6 months later, Quantum Dynamics released the Quantum Sense, a new haptic device for their high-end virtual reality platform. It was her father's technology, reverse-engineered and repurposed for video games. It made Gideon Blake another $1 billion. Ariana found her father in his garage, which had once been his lab. He wasn't dead. He was just gone. He was sitting on a stool, staring at the empty pegboard where his tools used to hang. He didn't speak. He just stared. A massive stroke had taken him a week later. The doctors said it was stress-induced hypertension. Ariana called it murder. She had graduated from MIT with honors, but she was a different person. The bright, optimistic girl was gone. In her place was a cold, methodical woman, fueled by a single, clarifying purpose: revenge. She changed her name. Ariana, her father's Lenichka, was too soft. She became Lena. She took her mother's maiden name, Flores. She vanished. She knew she couldn't fight Gideon Blake in a courtroom. He owned the courtrooms. She couldn't fight him in the market. He owned the market. So she went dark. She took her inheritance, not money, but her father's genius and her own. And she started to build. She lived in a tiny apartment, ate ramen noodles, and worked as a waitress at the most expensive restaurant in New York. Why? Because it was the perfect cover. No one looks at the waitress. She was invisible, a ghost in the machine. And more importantly, the alcove was where her enemy dined. She was, quite literally, studying him, listening, learning his patterns, his associates, the sound of his voice. And all the while, in her 400-square-foot apartment, on a server rig she'd built from salvaged parts, she was creating Aura. Aura was her father's true dream. Not just haptics, but a direct neural lace. A technology so profound it would rewrite human consciousness. It was touchstone, magnified by 1,000. It was beautiful. It was dangerous. And it was, finally, complete. She had leaked the data anonymously. She let the tech world buzz about the ghost founder. She knew Blake, a man obsessed with owning the next thing, would come sniffing. He would move heaven and earth to find her. And so, she had set the trap. She had her father's old lawyer, one of the few he'd trusted, now retired, set up the proxy firm. Peterson, Drake, and Llewellyn. They had demanded the meeting. They had named the time. And Lena, knowing Gideon Blake's habits, had suggested the alcove. This wasn't a meeting. It was a test. And as Lena stood in the cramped, fluorescent-lit locker room, she felt the last 8 years of her life congeal into a single, hard point. Gideon Blake was failing. He was failing spectacularly. She splashed cold water on her face, dried it on a rough paper towel, and composed her features. The mask of Anna, the blank professional waitress, snapped back into place. She unlocked the door and walked back out to the floor. When Lena returned to the dining room, the atmosphere around table 1 had curdled. It was 8:30 p.m. The guest was, by any measure, unforgivably late. Gideon Blake's facade of cold control was cracking, revealing the magma of his ego beneath. He was on the phone, and he was no longer using his quiet baritone. "I don't care what they confirmed, Philip," he hissed into his phone. "They are not here. This is an ambush. It's a power play, and I will not indulge it." He was speaking to Philip Shaw, his chief legal counsel. Shaw was a man who existed in a permanent state of high-functioning anxiety, a state caused almost entirely by working for Gideon Blake. "Sir, please," Shaw's tinny voice came from the phone. "Just 10 more minutes. They might be caught in traffic. It's New York. If you walk out, we lose all leverage. We've been trying to get this meeting for 6 months. Aura is the key to the everything, sir." "I know what it's the key to." Gideon slammed his free hand on the table, making the crystal water glasses jump. The entire dining room, a space usually filled with the gentle hum of privileged conversation, went silent. Every eye turned to table 1. Gideon Blake, a man who loathed public displays, realized his error. He visibly reined himself in. His voice dropped back to a venomous whisper. "You have 5 minutes, Philip. Find them, or find yourself a new job." He snapped the phone shut and threw it onto the table next to his untouched plate of bread. He looked up and saw Lena, standing 10 feet away, holding the wine bottle. "What do you want?" he snarled. "You signaled for a refill, sir," Lena said calmly. "I did not." "You waved your hand, Mr. Blake. I interpreted it as a request." He stared at her, breathing heavily. He was looking for a place to put his rage. "You interpreted? You're a waitress. You don't interpret. You respond. You're like a goddamned algorithm. If customer waves, then refill. You're not paid to think." The other patrons were now desperately pretending not to listen. Ben, the young waiter, was watching from the service station, his face pale with second-hand fear. He started to walk over, perhaps to help, but Lena gave him a minuscule, almost imperceptible shake of her head. He froze. "My apologies, sir," Lena said. She stepped forward to pour the wine. As she reached for his glass, Gideon moved his hand, as if gesturing, and knocked his water glass over. Ice and water flooded the table, spilling over the side and onto the floor, splashing onto Lena's black trousers. It was not an accident. It was a punishment, an assertion of dominance. "God damn it!" Gideon roared, jumping back. "Look what you've done, you clumsy! This is a $20,000 suit! Are you an idiot?" Lena didn't flinch. She didn't react. She simply put the wine bottle down and retrieved a stack of linen napkins from her service stand. She began to calmly sop up the water from the table, ignoring the mess on the floor and on her own uniform. "Ben!" she called out, her voice still perfectly level. "Bring a floor towel, and a new setting for Mr. Blake." Gideon was incensed. Her calm was a mirror that reflected his own ugliness, and he couldn't stand it. "Don't you talk to him, you talk to me!" he demanded, jabbing a finger at her. "I'm the one sitting in a puddle. What are you going to do about this? My suit is ruined. This whole night is ruined." "I will inform Monsieur Laurent, sir. I'm sure we can have the suit cleaned for you." "Cleaned?" Gideon laughed, a sound like tearing metal. "You think this is about laundry? This is about incompetence. This is about a $50 billion acquisition meeting that has been sabotaged by a late guest and a moronic server." He was vibrating with fury. He looked at her, soaked and silent, and a new, colder idea seemed to settle on him. He sat back down, waving away the mess. "Leave it," he commanded. "Just leave it. You. Anna. Stay here." Ben arrived with the towels and quickly cleaned the floor, replaced the soaked tablecloth with the dexterity of a magician, and reset the table, all under Gideon's burning, contemptuous gaze. Lena remained standing by the table, as requested. "It is 8:40 p.m., Gideon said, more to himself than to her. "They're not coming. They stood me up. Gideon Blake." He seemed to find this fact so monumentally offensive, so world-bending, that he couldn't quite process it. "They really think they're that special," he muttered. He looked up at Lena. She was just a prop in his personal drama. "Everyone thinks they're special, don't you? You probably think you're better than this. Waiting tables, wiping up my water. You probably go home to your, I don't know, your cats and your tiny apartment, and you write your screenplay or your blog, and you think you're a temporarily embarrassed genius." Lena said nothing. Her face was marble. "Here's the truth, Anna," Gideon said, leaning in. "There are two types of people in this world. people who act, and people who are acted upon. I am the former. You're the latter. You are the furniture of the world, and that's all you will ever be." He was done. The rage had passed, leaving only the cold, familiar emptiness of his own superiority. He had re-established his place in the universe. He was Gideon Blake. She was nobody. He looked at his phone. No new messages. 8:41 p.m. "This is over," he said. He stood up, adjusting his perfectly dry suit jacket. He was going to leave. He was going to call Philip Shaw and order him to burn Aura Technologies to the ground. He would find out who this founder was, and he would destroy them. He would buy their suppliers, poach their engineers, and bury them in the same patent troll lawsuits he'd used to destroy Ariana Flores. He reached into his jacket. Not for his wallet. He reached into his titanium money clip. It was thick with $100 bills. He used it for incidentals. He peeled off a stack. He didn't count it. It was thick. Maybe 30, 40, 50 bills. He threw the wad of cash onto the wet table. The money landed with a damp, insulting thwack on the new linen. It was a massive pile of cash, far more than a tip. It was a statement. Ben, who was hovering nervously nearby, audibly gasped. It was more money than he made in 2 months. Gideon Blake looked at the money, then at Lena. His eyes were dead. "That's $5,000, he said, his voice flat. "It's for you. Personally. Not for the house. Not to share with the kitchen." Lena looked at the cash. It was a small fortune, sitting next to a half-empty bread basket. "Sir?" she said. Her voice was no longer empty. It was dangerously quiet. 5,000, Gideon repeated. "I'm paying for the aggravation, for your incompetence, for my suit, for my ruined evening. But mostly, I'm paying for your silence." "My silence, sir?" "Yes." He gestured around the room. "This performance, my anger, my phone call. It didn't happen. You didn't see it. You're a ghost, Anna. You're furniture. And this," he tapped the money, "is the price of you remembering that. Take it. Go buy yourself a better job or some dignity, whichever is cheaper." He turned to leave. He had dismissed her. He had put a price tag on the encounter, and in his world, paying for something was the same as owning it. He had just bought her. "Stop." The word was not loud. It was not a shout, but it cut through the dining room like a shard of ice. It had an authority that was so absolute, so unexpected, that Gideon Blake, a man who had not taken an order from anyone in 25 years, actually stopped. He turned around slowly. Lena had not moved. She was still standing by the table. But the waitress was gone. The blank, submissive mask of Anna had evaporated. The woman standing there now was someone else entirely. Her posture was different. She was no longer a servant, deferential and invisible. She was rigid, radiating a cold, concentrated fury that was more terrifying than Gideon's hot rage. "What did you say to me?" Gideon asked, his voice dangerously low. "I said stop," Lena repeated. She did not move toward the money. Instead, she took a clean napkin from her apron and, very deliberately, wiped her hands as if she had just touched something filthy. "Take your money, Mr. Blake," she said. Gideon was confused. This was not in the script. "It's a $5,000 tip, sweetheart. I don't care what you call it. Just take it and get out of my sight." "I don't want your money." Gideon let out an actual, genuine laugh. It was a harsh, barking sound. "You don't want $5,000? Of course you do. Don't play games with me. It's insulting. Take the money." "No." She walked up to the table. Ben was frozen, thinking she was going to pocket it. Instead, She picked up the damp pile of hundreds with 2 fingers, as if it were a piece of garbage. She held it out to him. I said no. The entire restaurant was now watching, paralyzed. Monsieur Laurent was halfway across the floor, his face ashen. But he stopped, held back by the sheer, unadulterated tension of the moment. "You are refusing $5,000? Gideon said, his voice laced with disbelief. This was a malfunction in his universe. "Who in the hell do you think you are?" Lena looked at him. And now, for the first time, she let him see. She let him see the last 8 years. She let him see the MIT honors degree, the brilliant mind, the sleepless nights, the patent filings, the burning, unquenchable hatred. She let him see Ariana Flores. "That's the question, isn't it?" she said, her voice clear and carrying. "You've been sitting here for 45 minutes, lamenting your ruined evening. You've insulted my intelligence, my profession, and my person. You've treated me like furniture, like an algorithm. You've tried to buy my dignity for $5,000. She took a step closer. Gideon instinctively took a step back. "You're waiting for the founder of Aura Technologies, aren't you?" Gideon's blood turned to ice. His arrogance vanished, replaced by a sudden, sharp, animal fear. How do you know that name?" "You're here," Lena continued, her voice gaining strength, "to try and buy a company that you believe is your lifeline. A company you think will save quantum dynamics from its own bloated, uncreative, parasitic stagnation." "Who are you?" he whispered. "Are you with them? Are you the assistant? Is this a trick?" "This was a test, Mr. Blake," Lena said. She dropped the $5,000 onto the floor at his feet. The bills scattered. "And you have failed, miserably." She looked past him, at the empty chair. "I was curious, you see. I wondered if 8 years had changed you. I wondered if the man who destroyed my father was still the same empty, cruel narcissist I remembered." "Your father?" Gideon was completely untethered. He was adrift. "My name," she said, "is Ariana Flores. My father was Mikhail Flores, of Flores Innovations." G-Zone. The name hit Gideon like a physical blow. He staggered. He remembered. Of course he remembered. Touchstone, the lawsuit, the patents, the tiny, annoying man who had refused to settle. "Flores," he stammered. The company. That was a legal matter, a business transaction. You call destroying a man's life's work and stealing his genius a business transaction? Ariana's voice was now ringing with power. You call driving him to an early grave a legal matter? You sat here and you told me you don't negotiate. You conquer. You conquered my father. You tore him apart, and you sold the pieces for parts. She gestured to the empty chair. You came here to meet the founder of Aura Technologies. She paused, letting the silence stretch, letting every person in that room lean in. "Gideon Blake," she said, her voice clear and final. "I am the founder and CEO of Aura Technologies. Aura is Touchstone. It is my father's work, resurrected. It is his legacy, made real, and it is everything you will never, ever have." The silence in the alcove was no longer a hush. It was a vacuum. It was the absolute absence of sound, a void created by the singularity of Oriana's revelation. Ben's mouth was wide open. Maria was holding a tray, her arm trembling. Monsieur Laurent looked like he was having a heart attack. Gideon Blake simply stared. His face, usually so controlled, had collapsed. The granite had turned to putty. He was white. He was seeing a ghost, a CEO, and his own executioner, all in one. "No," he whispered. That's not possible. You're a waitress." The word sounded pathetic, even to him. "I was a waitress," Ariana corrected him, her voice like steel. I was a waitress because it was the one place I knew you would be. It was the one place I could study you, undetected. I've been serving you your $1,000 wine for 18 months, Gideon. I've listened to you bully senators. I've watched you fire executives over dessert. I've learned your every weakness. And your greatest weakness, she pointed a finger at him, is that you cannot see the person right in front of you. You only see the status. You saw Anna, the waitress, a nobody. You were incapable of seeing Ariana Flores, the one person on earth who could destroy you. She kicked the money on the floor. You think this is power? This paper? Your power is an illusion. It's built on theft. It's built on the wreckage of better, more brilliant people. Gideon tried to recover. He was a shark. He had to swim. He tried to force his negotiation face back on. Ariana, Miss Flores, listen. What happened with your father? It was tragic. It was business. It wasn't personal. But this changes everything. We can make this right. A partnership. I'll make you the richest woman in the world. Whatever you want. Name your price. He was trying to buy her. Again. After everything. Ariana looked at him with a pity so profound it was more insulting than her anger. You still don't get it, she said softly. You think you're offering me something. You have nothing I want. You want to offer me wealth? I am Aura. I am already wealthy beyond your comprehension. You want to offer me power? I'm the woman who just made Gideon Blake beg in the middle of the alcove. I have all the power I need. She circled him, slowly, like a wolf. Let me tell you what happens now. In exactly 10 minutes, a press release is going out from my company. It will announce that Aura Technologies has officially rejected a hostile, unsolicited acquisition offer from Quantum Dynamics. But it's not just a rejection. She stopped directly in front of him. It will also announce our new, exclusive partner. Apex Solutions. Your biggest competitor. We've been in talks with them for 6 months. They, unlike you, treated me with respect. They, unlike you, saw me. The deal was signed this morning. They are getting Aura. They are getting the future. Gideon's knees literally buckled. Apex, no, you can't. Apex Solutions. The one company that could actually use Aura to its full potential. This wasn't just a loss. This was an extinction-level event for Quantum Dynamics. And here, Ariana said, her voice dropping to a confidential whisper, are the words I want you to remember. The words you will never forget. She leaned in, close enough that he could feel the cold anger radiating from her. You told me tonight that there are 2 types of people. Those who act and those who are acted upon. You were right, but you were wrong about which one I am. You acted upon my father. And now, I am acting upon you. You don't build, Gideon. You only conquer. You're a parasite, and you just lost your host. She straightened up. As for this $5,000, she looked down at the scattered bills. Ben. The young waiter jumped, his eyes wide. Yes, Lena, Miss, Mom? Gather this up. It's a tip. For you. For all of you. For having to serve this man. For the last hour. She then looked at Monsieur Laurent, who was standing, paralyzed. Laurent, she said, her voice now that of a CEO, not an employee. My apologies for the scene. Send the cleaning bill for the water to Mr. Blake's office. He's good for it. For now. Oh, and I quit. She turned, her back straight, and walked out of the restaurant. She didn't run. She walked. Every step was a hammer blow on the coffin of Gideon Blake's career. Gideon stood alone in the center of the room, in a puddle of water and a scattering of $100 bills. He was, for the first time in his life, utterly and completely powerless. The silence Ariana left in her wake was a physical thing, a heavy blanket that smothered the opulent dining room. For a full 10 seconds, no one moved. The clinking of distant cutlery, the murmur of conversation, it had all vanished. There was only the sound of Gideon Blake's ragged breathing. Ben, the young waiter, was the first to break the spell. He looked from the open doorway Ariana had vanished through to the scattered pile of $100 bills at Gideon's feet, and then to the billionaire himself. "Ma'am, Ben stammered. Monsieur Laurent, his face the color of old parchment, finally found his legs. He walked slowly toward Gideon, not as a manager to a guest, but as a man approaching the scene of an accident. "Mr. Blake," he began, his voice barely a whisper. I had no idea." Gideon didn't hear him. He was staring at the doorway. He was still seeing her eyes. "I am the founder and CEO of Aura Technologies." The words replayed, a loop of code that was systematically deleting his reality. I was the architect, and I was just redesigning the room. He looked down at the money on the floor, the $5,000, his price. It looked like play money, obscene and pathetic. With a jerky mechanical movement he turned. He didn't say a word. He didn't look at Laurent. He began to walk. Every eye in the alcove followed him. He could feel the weight of their stares, no longer tinged with fear or awe, but with a horrifying mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. He was no longer the apex predator. He was the carcass, and the vultures were gathering. He walked out of the restaurant, through the lobby, and past the shocked doorman who scrambled to open the door for him. The cool night air hit him like a slap, but it couldn't clear his head. He fumbled for his car keys, his hands shaking so violently he dropped them on the pavement. He, Gideon Blake, who had signed billion-dollar contracts with a hand as steady as a surgeon's, couldn't pick up his keys. He finally got into his Bentley, a cocoon of hand-stitched leather and polished wood, but it felt like a coffin. He sat, staring blankly through the windshield. His phone, which he had left on the table, was in his pocket. It began to vibrate, a frantic, angry buzz. He pulled it out. "Philip Shaw," he answered, but said nothing. "Gideon, what happened?" Shaw's voice wasn't just panicked. It was shrill, bordering on hysteria. "The press release, it's everywhere. Aura Technologies rejects hostile offer from Quantum Dynamics. Cites predatory practices. They're naming Apex Solutions as an exclusive partner. The after-hours market's just locked. We'll limit down. Gideon, what did you do in that restaurant?" Gideon opened his mouth, but only a dry, rasping sound came out. They're mentioning Flores," Shaw continued, his voice cracking. "They're linking Aura to the Touchstone patent suit, the one from 8 years ago. How did they? Why is that? Oh God, Gideon, the board is calling an emergency session for 7 a.m. They're demanding all files related to the Flores litigation, all of them. Gideon, talk to me." Gideon ended the call. He dropped the phone onto the passenger seat. He couldn't process the words. Flores, Apex, board. It was just noise. The only thing that was real was the image of a waitress. No, a CEO, calmly dropping a wad of his money at his feet. The next morning, the world he had commanded was gone. The headlines were not just negative. They were a vivisection. The Wall Street Journal ran with, "Titan Falls. Blake's 50B Aura bid implodes amid revelations of decades-old grudge." But it was Forbes that twisted the knife. The digital cover story was already viral. "Revenge served cold. The waitress who took down Gideon Blake." The article had it all. It had quotes. Ben, the waiter, had apparently spoken to a reporter for a hefty sum, describing the entire scene in vivid, excruciating detail. He described the arrogance, the bullying, the deliberately spilled water. He recounted Gideon's line about furniture. And then he described the final, devastating reveal. The story painted Gideon not as a titan, but as a cartoon villain, a fool blinded by his own hubris. He was not just ruined, he was a global punchline. The 7 a.m. board meeting was a slaughter. Gideon didn't even attend. He sat in his penthouse, watching QTM on the ticker. The opening bell was a death knell. The stock, which had closed at $350 a share, opened at $90. As institutional investors and pension funds panicked and dumped their holdings, it entered a freefall. Philip Shaw, in a desperate last-ditch attempt to save himself, had provided the board with a decade's worth of emails, painting Gideon as a rogue actor, obsessed with unethical patent trolling, with Shaw himself as the fruitlessly objecting voice of reason. The board didn't buy it. They saw him for what he was, the enabler. In a unanimous vote, Gideon Blake was removed as CEO and chairman of Quantum Dynamics. His security access was revoked before the meeting even adjourned. By noon, Philip Shaw was also fired, his golden parachute voided under a morality clause. By the end of the week, QTM was trading at $12 a share. It was worth less than the paper its stock certificates were printed on. Within 6 months, Quantum Dynamics, the empire Gideon had built from nothing, was insolvent. It was carved up and sold for scrap. The most valuable pieces, the patents, the R&D labs, were all acquired at a brutal discount by Apex Solutions, which was now, thanks to the integration of Aura, the most valuable and powerful technology company on the planet. 6 months after that, the cover of Forbes was different. There was no mockery. The headline was simple: The Architect, Ariana Flores, and the New Empire. The photo shoot didn't take place in a dark, mahogany-lined restaurant. It was in a bright, airy campus of glass and sustainable wood. The headquarters of Aura Technologies, a sprawling complex of labs and creative spaces, had been built on the exact plot of land where Flores Innovations had once stood. In the center of the campus quad was a quiet, beautiful garden. A small, simple plaque read, "Mikhail's Garden." It's about the beauty. Ariana was in her office, a minimalist room with one wall of glass overlooking the garden. The reporter, a sharp woman named Diane Lee, was closing her notebook. "It's an incredible story, Ariana," Diane said. "But I have to ask the question everyone wants to know. You worked for 18 months as a waitress. You put your life on hold. You served that man. You took his abuse. You debased yourself. Why? Surely there was another way to launch Aura." Ariana looked away from the window, a small, thoughtful smile on her face. "It wasn't debasement, Diane. Debasement is when you compromise your why. My why was clear: to get justice for my father and to protect his legacy. The what, being a waitress, was just a tool. It was data collection." She leaned forward. "My father taught me that, to solve a complex problem, you must first understand it completely. Gideon Blake was a problem. I needed to understand his code. I needed to know if he was still the same man who destroyed my father. I needed to know if he was capable of redemption. And was he? He wasn't," Ariana said simply. "He was worse. He'd had 8 years to grow, to reflect. Instead, he just calcified. The test was simple. I gave him a powerless person to interact with, and he failed. He confirmed every data point I'd ever collected." "And the tip?" Diane asked, unable to hide her fascination. "The $5,000 he threw at you?" "The irony is palpable, isn't it?" Ariana mused. "He thought the world ran on a ledger. He tried to buy my silence, my dignity, my entire being, for $5,000. In refusing, I cost him, what was the final valuation? About $53 billion. It was, without a doubt, the single most expensive tip in human history. Diane laughed. One last question. Gideon Blake, he lost everything. The company, the reputation. I heard he's living in his last condo in Miami. Do you feel closure? Is it over? Ariana stood, walking to the window that overlooked the garden. She watched her engineers, the brightest minds in the world, laughing as they walked, holding tablets displaying her father's dream. It's over for him, she said. For me, this is just the beginning. As for Gideon, I truly hope he's comfortable. I hear the service industry in Miami is excellent. I hope they're prompt with his water. She turned back to the reporter, her eyes clear and bright, not with the cold fire of vengeance, but with the warm light of purpose. He told me that night that I was furniture, that I was something to be acted upon. He was wrong. I was the architect, and I was just redesigning the room. And just like that, a multi-billion-dollar empire built on arrogance and theft was brought to its knees by a single no. Ariana Flores proved that true power isn't about the money in your bank account or the title on your door. It's about a why. It's about the strength to remember who you are when the world is telling you you're a nobody. Gideon Blake saw a waitress. He should have seen a queen. What did you think of Ariana's ultimate revenge? Was it justice, or was it something more? Let us know in the comments below what you would have done in her position. Thank you for watching. This story is a powerful reminder that the people you overlook are often the ones holding all the cards. If you loved this story, please show your support by hitting that like button, sharing this video with someone who needs to see it, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more unforgettable real-life dramas. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. We'll see you in the next story.